Welcome to Seed to Success, the podcast where we deep dive into the strategies, stories, and smart decisions that help VAs and OBMs grow and thrive. I'm your host, Adrienne Donnelly, and whether you're just starting out or looking for ways to take your business to the next level, you're in the right place. This episode is proudly sponsored by Ready to Boss Legal. Their online legal templates focus on the ins and outs of protecting your business legally without fuss or large legal fees, leaving you to focus on what you do best, being the boss and building the business of your dreams. As a listener of the podcast, you will receive 10% off any templates through Ready to Boss Legal. Just use SEED10 upon checkout. That is SEED10 for a 10% discount at readytobosslegal.com. Now let's get into today's conversation. Welcome, Maz from Thrive Admin Services to the podcast, a long-term friend of Seed. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Very, very grateful to be talking all things Microsoft 365 and Microsoft in general today. So if you could just give our listeners and our viewers a bit of an overview on what Thrive Admin Services is and what you do.
Yeah, so Thrive's been around now for about 5.5 years. I started in January 2020, and I come from a background of corporate EAPA work, and my job was typically to figure it out and take that weird big idea that my then boss or the team wanted, no budget, no time, but really expecting the top shelf result, and figuring out how we could do that without having to take on or run through an approval process to get software or equipment or external people. So my superpower, for want of a better word, was figuring out how to make that happen. And what we learned along the way was that there were lots of tools and features that we could use inside Microsoft that we had in all of the corporate settings I've worked in. And so being willing to have a try and figure that out was the start of what became Thrive. Then when I went out on my own, it was doing the same sort of thing. And over time now it's evolved into really very specifically helping others in the admin space to understand what's there, but how to use it for themselves and their own clients as well. So that's what I do now.
Fantastic. I remember, I think we first met at the VA Summit a few years ago down in Sydney, and you were presenting, I think 2 or 3 years ago now.
Yep.
And there was a session on Microsoft and there was a session on Google. And I remember the host of the Google session was like, Team Google. Yeah. And I was like, no, I'm Team Microsoft. But I guess in the VA and OBM space, I think I had just naturally grown up in, straight out of high school, straight into the workforce, Microsoft-based businesses.
Which is
and
what
that's
they
all.
all had. That's
totally
all they had, really.
Yeah. But do you find that people sort of, in the VA and OBM space have to be equally as across both because of our clients?
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of what we do is that when you're a business owner, you get to make your own decisions for your business, and you can say, I really like the Google workspace, or I really like Microsoft. It makes sense to the way my brain works or whatever it might be. When you can make that decision for yourself, that's easy. But the moment you go into a client's workspace, you have to fit into what they're using and what works for them. And so that's going to be a mix. So even for me, I work in Microsoft. I teach other people how to use Microsoft. But every so often I'll work on a project with someone and they're all set up in Google, but they need this one feature done this way, or they need a particular document or whatever it is. So there's a foot in both camps in the VA and OBM space. And I think it's really important that even if it's not your preferred way of doing things, knowing that it's there means that you can better service your own clients and give them the options that are going to work for them, because that's what it's about. It's about making sure they get the solution that's right for them. So, if it's just about your own business, and I always say it's completely personal choice, but if you're coming into someone's space, you just need to be aware of what you're walking into so that you don't feel like you're getting that over. Like a lot of VAs turn up and they go, oh, it's all Microsoft there and I run my business on Google and I don't know what to do. And that's the gap that I think is really important to fill so that they can go in with confidence and then impress the client and be able to work with them again with confidence as well.
It's a good point you make. I know with my VA business, Organised by Adrienne, I have clients that straddle both Microsoft and Google because, they're both amazing platforms, but like all platforms have some limitations and don't always fit exactly what the client needs. So they may do primarily everything in one, but there's one functionality of the other that they really enjoy. So tell me now how your business works in terms of, you mentioned clients, you mentioned projects. What are the sort of services and offerings that Thrive Admin Services provides?
Yeah, so it's interesting. This is sort of the last sort of 6 months has seen a bit of a shift. I'm not going to use the P word, but it is a bit of a shift in terms of we don't use that word.
We need the little Ross
little Ross
from Friends.
We don't say that word anymore. But yeah, I think it's been it's sort of an evolution as the business has grown and as I've understood a little bit more about getting comfortable in my own space and what I'm very good at. So there are fewer client projects now, and the ones that I do take on I tend to do like a big fixed fee service project where someone says, I need, so some of the projects I work on, I'm creating a form that feeds into an automation that will fill out a spreadsheet and it's got all the folders and things. So it's that whole start to finish process as opposed to what I was doing maybe 12 months ago or longer, which was the document templates and the sort of the smaller content pieces. It's more that bigger system stuff that I work on now. And then the bigger part of what I'm doing is the training and the support. So through a membership, through in-person and online training and resources to help both admins in the corporate world, because they're all working with it still, but also people who run their own small businesses, whether that's VAs and OBMs, but also potentially their clients who need to know how to use it on a day-to-day basis. So that's more where Thrive sits now. It's my happy place. So I can play in the background still and have my hands on things, but I'm really more enjoying being in the space of being able to help others use the tools, because that's the idea is you've got them, you should be using them.
And so then for those bigger kind of meaty projects, then do you find that often those clients will have a VA and they're just looking for you to come in and like set up that infrastructure and then teach someone who's in the team how to kind of keep it running then, or you would recommend them to engage a VA or an OBM to keep that going?
Yeah, to be a little bit of both. So sometimes they'll come to me and they'll say, I want to do this thing, and they've just got that outcome in mind and they're not sure what the steps are in the background. So it's first mapping out and seeing what they do now and what they have and how we can sort of put those pieces together to create that final solution that will just plug straight into their workflow, because we don't want to create more work for them. That's obviously the first point. And then checking that they've got someone who is going to just be able to oversee and understand how to do that. So whether that's an OBM or a VA, whether it's them, if they're a super small operation, whoever it is just going to have the knowledge then to be able to manage it and evolve it, because it's not set and forget. They might want to make a change in 2 months, 3 months, 12 months. So it's just making sure they understand how all those pieces come together so that when they want to add something on or remove something or edit something, they can do it themselves without having to circle back and invest again, unless they need to or choose to, because it's, that's again a personal choice. But ideally what we're doing is building that knowledge each time within that organisation. So that's the goal.
And you are fantastic at that, as someone who engaged you to provide me with some one-on-one training, because I had onboarded a new client and they were using a lot more of the Microsoft suite than I had experience with. I think that is absolutely your sweet spot. How do you keep up to date with what Microsoft is doing in terms of product development so that you can then advise others?
Well, there's a lot of trial and error that goes on. So it's a lot of seeing things that are happening and group forums and doing a lot of reading online. And then often it's a bit of trial and error. So I'll see something, and even for my own business, I'll go, oh, that would actually be a really clever idea. How do I do that? So there are things that when I do something in the business myself and want to achieve a certain outcome, I'll test. So I become my own guinea pig and I go, oh, great, now I know how to do that. Or that doesn't really work for me, or that some of them aren't useful for me. There are a great community of VAs and business buddies that I have who will send me a message every so often. Did you see this? Or do you know how to do this? Because it will pop up in their feeds because everybody's feed is very unique. So they'll direct me and I'll go, oh, I'll have a look at that and see what I can see. I try to stay away from too much of the AI coding, IT, techie stuff, because that's the stuff that's changing all the time.
Sure.
And what I'm really looking at is that day-to-day user experience and the features inside the programs, which sometimes it's about getting the basics right, and the basics don't really change. And then it's figuring out what those extra levels of skill or customization need to be and learning those. Sometimes I'm learning them just a little bit faster than the client. But I've got a pretty good head for understanding the tech and being able to marry that with, you know, what I want to get done and understanding how to break that down. That's kind of what I'm really good at.
And I think by making that choice to really just hone in on Microsoft, you have that bigger picture, how all those different applications within the Microsoft suite interact and can talk to each other, and what the relationships are there. Have you got any examples of, you know, when a VA or OBM has maybe come to you for a client situation going, this is the solution, and some of those sort of results that they were able to achieve? I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here.
I say we, it's me and usually the OBM or client. But the big ones are usually where we're looking at taking teams or forms and being able to find a way to get the information and then use it without having to manually process things. So it's a lot of that, it's automation, not AI. So it's being able to make that process easier so that it's consistent, but also that it's in a place that for a small business, a lot of the time they're working in their home office or in their actual office, and they've got a VA who could be anywhere else in the world, really, but anywhere else. And so the information comes in, but it needs to be accessible. So it's a lot of the time it's been about them saying, well, I don't want to have to send them an email, or I don't want to have to, you know, fill it in here. I want it all just to happen automatically. I don't want to do it myself is the usual line. So the big ones are using forms. I do a lot of stuff with VAs where we're creating forms to automate and make that information flow really consistent, so they're getting information in the same format all the time. And then it goes into a spreadsheet or it goes into a list, and then they can do what they like with it, but it's always live and up to date, which is really helpful. Great for onboarding. Having a consistent flow of how things happen means it's consistent for the VA, and seeing the information and going, oh, I know what to do with that, or I've got that reminder, which means I have to do this. But it's also really important that it's a consistent process on the front end for a potential client or a return client or an existing one, that they get what feels like a very personal experience without you having to give up 12 extra hours of your week to give it. So forms and having a central place that feels safe and secure but is easy to work with, and getting that set up right so that it's easy for you as a VA to work with, but also for your client who may not be very techie, and being able to make it really easy for them to get in, find what they need, and get on with their day. So those sorts of projects tend to be the ones that have the biggest transformation, because we know what we know. And we go, well, I usually take a phone call and then I do a bunch of emails and then I put it in a folder and I share that folder with them, and they can never remember where the folder is, so I end up just emailing it to them anyway. And then they phone me because they've lost the email, so I have to send it again. And it's time. So what I do effectively is find ways for us to build a system that means we can say to them, every time your client wants to see their contract or their invoice or their report or their social media that's scheduled or whatever it is, it's all in this place, and they just go into Teams and it's in their team. Or it's just on SharePoint and it's all there and it's pretty and it's very clear, and they can click this and it will open up what they want. So it's about just it's putting some responsibility back on the client, but it's saying, I've given you everything in a nice, neat box. Everything I do is in there. You don't need to message me. You don't need to phone me. You don't need to email me. You don't need to WhatsApp me. Whatever it is you're doing, all of the above.
All of the inboxes.
All of the above. And just making that process really easy so that you can repeat the process with every client. And so every client has the same experience, but you can jump backwards and forwards between clients as you need to as well. And it's not one system for one person and another system for someone else. Because that's just taking up bandwidth in your brain that you should be spending on the work, not on how you get to the work.
Yes, it's such a good point, because it's all of those sort of bits and pieces and troubleshooting and resending things and messaging clients. One, it's really hard to quantify that time that you're spending with a client. If you're working in a kind of hourly rate capacity for your clients, it's really hard to quantify.
They're going to question that if you pop that on an invoice, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Of course they are.
Yeah, but also it takes away from the areas where you as a VA or OBM can be really adding all that extra value to your partnership with the client. You're not sort of getting stuck in those bits and piece type thing where you're just putting out fires, but you can really free yourself up of all of those manual repetitive tasks through great automations and connection of different apps and tech that's already in your tech stack, and becoming more of a partner to them, more of a valued partner to them, and providing more support in other ways.
Yeah. And it means that there's a really nice, simple, using Teams or using OneDrive or using SharePoint, it means that they can go there and they can see all the things that you've done for them in a central place and go, this is the value I bring. It's all here. These are all the things that we've got, and these are the things that are going on. Rather than them seeing an email here and a message there, it just helps. And it looks so professional when you just say, this is the link, bookmark this link. This is where everything that we work on will sit. It's a really simple process, but it takes away some of their fears and anxiety about working with someone, because they look at it and say, oh, well, this is really easy. It's just that link and it's in my browser and I've got everything I need. And I can message them and I can voice note them and I can share files and I can download files. It's all in one place. Oh, this is much easier. Why would I go to somebody else? This is perfect. And that's what you want to have for each and every client experience that you work with. You want them to be a raving fan.
Definitely. Yeah. Do you have any favorite functionalities within Microsoft, or any things within Microsoft that you think, oh, they're really the unsung hero? I wish more people knew about this functionality.
I've got a couple of apps that I do rave on about all the time. I mean, my happy place is Word. So that's my background, is working in Word. So I will always bang on about templates in Word as a true template, not a file that is saved with the word template in the
file name.
We've all worked with those. But a true
No
template.
shame if you're listening
No.
and that's your current situation. Reach out to Maz. She's got some great tips on how to improve that system. But we've all been there.
We've all been there. And the reality is that those templates make you think that templates don't work because they're so frustrating. So a true template that opens as a clean document every time and has... I love a template that has everything in it and then you just take out what you don't need. So you start with everything and you refine it down. So a proposal for everything, all the team bios, all of the different price points, and then you just pull out the bits you don't need. And that makes life much easier because you're not trying to... And everything's consistent. That's the joy of a proper template. Every proposal that goes out looks the same. And if a client comes back to you in 12 months, 18 months, 5 years, hopefully your templates would evolve a little bit in 5 years, but they'll know this is where the fee is and this is where I find out what the scope is and these are the terms and conditions. And there's a familiarity about it that makes them feel a little bit more comfortable because we don't like things we don't understand. So if they feel confused and lost and can't figure things out, they're less likely to say yes, which is what we want them to do.
Well, it's also consistency. It's ensuring clients don't receive a proposal that's got another client's information in it. It's got the wrong file name, the wrong naming conventions, all of those things. It's just a polished professional outcome for your clients and even your own VA business if you're using document templates for your own proposals or quotes or something like that.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. From start to finish, it should be really... feel individual and bespoke without taking you hours and hours out of your day. That's the goal. The other ones that I really love, I think Teams is really underrated. It's compared to Zoom a lot still, which is fine, but it's also a competitor with Slack. It's a competitor with ClickUp. It's a competitor with Dropbox. Like it does all of those things in one, which I really love. So you can do your file sharing, you can do your threaded conversations, you can have all of your posts and announcements. You can do your video meetings, but it does all of those other things as well. And I think people don't necessarily realize how powerful it is and that you don't need to have a Microsoft account to use Teams either. So your clients can just jump into a Teams call.
I think Teams got a bad rap because it was almost born out of
COVID. Like we never actually got taught how to use it properly.
No.
Like you just saying those things, I was like, say more about how it could compete with ClickUp, because I'm like, that's new to me, because I think we just got flung into Teams during COVID because all these businesses that were Microsoft businesses were like, we have this, we're using that, but we were never, we never grew with it like we did with Zoom. Like we've all grown with Zoom.
It was Teams and Microsoft absolutely missed. Yeah, and I've been saying this from the beginning.
I've heard you say it before.
Microsoft missed a huge opportunity then, because Zoom came in and just went, hey, super fancy, look at what we can do.
Super easy,
and it's free, and you can have everybody on it, and everyone in the business can have their own account, and it's super, super simple. Yeah. But Teams was already sitting there and did all of that. It didn't do it particularly well, so it was lagging, but I think now it's leaping ahead and it's become really, really powerful. So I always say to people, and it's one of, in a regular webinar I do, it's the first one I suggest when we talk about swapping things out to save money, because you can do webinars, you can do breakout rooms, you can do town halls, which allow you up to 10,000 people on a call. Wow. You can have your recordings and your transcripts. It does the file sharing. I create all of my client portals now inside Teams rather than as a SharePoint site, because it's easier in terms of an interface to use. So we do file sharing, we do our meetings, we do messaging, all in the one space, and it doesn't cost me a cent more. It's all included. So none of that is an extra add-on.
Dropbox for $20 a month. There goes Zoom for $45 a month. Yeah.
There goes Slack if you're paying for a paid Slack subscription. So, you know, the money stacks up pretty quickly.
Definitely. And I think more and more businesses are looking at those sorts of things. Instead, you know, how many of us have just signed up to something, do a trial, and then realise, we're still paying $9.99 a month. But like, this is why I always bang on about audit subscriptions, quarterly audit subscriptions.
Or you get to the end of the 7 days. 7 days is nowhere near long enough as a free trial.
Not to
figure
learn
out
a tech stack.
To learn a tech stack, or even understand if it's going to do what you want it to do. So you go, well, I'll just pay for a month. And then that becomes 6 months, and you've spent, you know, another $50-$60, and you still haven't figured out if you can use it. So my latest sort of argument is, if you're thinking about trying something new, I would say jump into Microsoft and see if there's a tool that kind of helps you get your head around if that's going to be the right idea for you. So the example I use is Planner, which I call Trello Lite. It's still a little bit, I know people who love Trello really love Trello, but if you're starting something in project management, or you think you like the idea of Trello, just make a planner board and see if the system works for you. Does the Kanban style work for you? Do you understand how to create a checklist and set deadlines and delegate tasks? Do you like the way it flows? Some people it's really simple. Other people prefer lists because it's like a table layout. So some people are visual, some people aren't. So it's about, why sign up to something else and forget about it and then realise, that's there and I've never used it. Where you can create a single planner board, have a play with it and go, no, that's not for me. Delete that board. No other passwords to worry about, no other accounts floating around anywhere. Like it's just much easier. If it works for you and you say, actually, I need it to do more, that's when you go, okay, well, I'll take this, but I'll investigate other options. There are a few people I've worked with that do that. They'll start with Planner and they go, actually, I need like the power ups, or I need it to do a bit more automation, which Planner doesn't do at this point. So that's where I say, okay, well, keep your Planner board, have a look at Trello. And then when you're ready to start with Trello, you've got a layout that you can just implement in Trello, and you know that that's going to work for you. And then you're just getting used to the language and the layout and the buttons. You're not worried about figuring out how that fits with your particular working style. So that one's really important.
I think you're right. When I'm a Trello user, but I do have some clients that use Planner for that. And it was a very easy transition from one to the other, where I know when I get more in platforms like ClickUp and thing, where it's very list based and list within list within list, like my brain just doesn't work like that. I like seeing that other side. Have you got any examples, whether it's your own business or businesses that you've worked with, around what types of projects or workflows that they're using Planner for?
So for me, I use Planner for social media. I think it's a great way to do, and I know loads of people do that with Trello as well. It's brilliant for that because I can put the image on the board so I can see the post image, and then I can put my caption, I can have my hashtags, I can make a note in the notes section of the dates it was posted if we're going to repurpose the content, which is really handy. The other thing I like about using Planner for social media is that I've got the Planner app on my phone. So if I want to do something on the fly, I can just copy the hashtag set. So I've got tasks, I've got a bucket, because Microsoft doesn't use sexy terms. So I've got a bucket, and in the bucket or the column, I've got an admin one, and that's where all my hashtag sets sit. So I can copy the hashtag set and then just paste it into a caption if I want to put it in really quickly. So that makes life much easier. For me, I use them as my client tracking boards. So every client gets a board, and then every project or task I work on with a client goes into that board. And so it just has, we keep it really simple because I'm big on let's not overcomplicate it. It's 4 buckets. It's an admin bucket, a to-do, an in progress, and a completed. And so every project we work on, I'll create a task that goes into to-do, sits in progress while we're working on it, and then it sits in completed. So all of the work we've done together sits in that board. So some clients I've worked with on and off over the last 5 years, there are projects in the completed column that are nearly 5 years old, but it means if I need to go back, I've got a reference as to what we did, how we did it, the files that they sent through, all that sort of stuff. So I can see that history all in one place, which is really handy. And the client can see that as well.
Very handy indeed. Yeah. You mentioned at the top of the conversation about moving, I guess, sort of splitting the business between those meaty, big infrastructure type projects for clients and then the training. And this year you have been working actively on some in-person training workshops. What was your decision around, I guess, moving from like those online workshops and training options, which I know you and I have done together, and we've talked about projects like that for clients, to more in-person options?
There is something about being in the room and being able to point at the screen that you can't, it doesn't matter how good a Zoom or a Teams call is, it just doesn't have the same feeling. So the in-person stuff is a chance to do that where, whether it's one-on-one in person or in a small group, it's really nice to be able to ask questions and be able to write on a piece of paper and scribble around and then get in and have one person driving. So usually the client or the participant in a workshop is driving on their computer, but able to sort of have me leaning over their shoulder, literally sort of going, hey, try that one there. Or if that one's not working, let's see how this looks. And you can do that on the fly in a different way. The energy is a little bit different, which I really like. And sometimes people will ask a question, particularly when you've got a group of people in a room. Someone will ask a question and 4 other people were thinking it but didn't want to say it.
Yeah.
So being in a room like that, you soak up so much more than you would if it was just one-on-one in a small session, or even online, because in an online space, people don't ask as many questions as they want to. And you always get messages afterwards going, oh, by the way, I just wondered. If you just ask that in the question, there's probably 5 other people who would have loved to know the same answer. Yeah. So it kind of takes some of that fear away because it's not on a screen. They're just in a room and we're all sitting in a circle, and it just doesn't feel quite as, I suppose, as structured or as hierarchical as perhaps sometimes an online workshop still does, I think.
And I think I think we're all guilty of this, when we're in a session online or in a meeting. Not now, obviously, we're fully engaged, but in other meetings, often we have other tabs open. We've got 2, 3 screens, and we're distracted. There's notifications pinging our phones right there.
And there's people you don't know. There's typically, you join, if whether you pay for it or it's a free session, for me or for anybody else. I know when I go to a session, you're always looking at who's in the room and you're like, I don't know who any of these people are.
Yeah.
And so it makes you second guess even just putting something in the chat, because you don't know who they are. You don't know anything about how they're going to perceive what you're saying. They don't understand who you are. So it's nice to be in the room where you do that little bit of introduction and everybody kind of relaxes and feels like we're all here for the same reason. And it's always much easier if there's more than 2 people when you're not on an online call, because you can have different people talking and it doesn't interfere with the flow in the same way. You can have 2 people on that side of the room having a conversation very quietly, and it doesn't impact what might be going on with the main group, which is also really handy because it means you can learn in the way that works for you as well.
Yeah. So the workshops, are they on a specific part of Microsoft? Do people submit their questions before and then that is what you cover in the workshop? How do they go in terms of the material and what the learnings are?
So the road show that I do, which is a small group workshop, it's a suite of 6 workshops. They're half-day sessions. So we do an introduction to Outlook, because there's a lot more to Outlook than people realize. So we look at Outlook as a whole thing, not just as your inbox. Then we do an intro to Teams, because like I said, I think it's really underrated. And then we've got 2 for Word. So there's an introduction or an introduction to Word, where we look at getting those foundations right, the fundamentals, understanding how to create a true template and working with some basic formatting so that you can comfortably work with documents you already have. And then we do a Word next level, where we look at some of the more technical aspects, like putting tables of contents in and cross-referencing and being able to create more, I wouldn't say more professional, just more polished documents. So it's that sort of advanced level of skill. You don't want to kind of cram too much into one session. And then we do the same for Excel. So there's an introduction to Excel, and we look at some key functions and understanding things like working with different tabs and being able to just get comfortable with what Excel does in that foundational level. And then we do an advanced one. We look at more complex functions. We look at conditional formatting and tables and charts. And so you can take that data and do more with it without having to manually do as much of the work. So the suite of 6 gives you a really nice blend. And the way I try and put them together is that they're 3 consecutive days, maybe 4, depending on availability and timing. And you can purchase a single session, or you can purchase a couple of sessions and save by bundling. So, and you can pick and choose which sessions you want to come to. So I'd like to keep it as flexible as possible. We keep it to a maximum of 20 people in a session, because I think it's a nice way to be able to sit. You bring your laptop, the Wi-Fi's there, the snacks are on the table, there's tea and coffee, and you can we kind of tackle 4 topics across half a day, but it's really hands-on. And the idea is that you're building that muscle memory as well as learning, so that when you go away, you're like, oh yeah, I remember how I did that. Yeah, that button was there. So it's sort of you're driving and I'm guiding for that half day.
I love that. And I think that really speaks to, I guess, different learning styles. And, people do sometimes like that classroom environment. Some people do more like that self-paced, dip in and out when you need. And it sounds like you've sort of got all of that covered between the membership and then the online and the in-person, which is great, because it's really making your services and offerings and being able to share your expertise in different ways that people prefer to learn.
Yeah, and I think that's the trick, is you've got to meet, whether it's for yourself or whether it's for a client or whether it's someone who's part of a team that kind of has a very fixed role. It's understanding how to do that thing to the best you can that fits with the way you need to work, not necessarily the way I think it should work or the way Microsoft thinks it should work. It's about finding the ways to cherry pick those features to make your life easier. And so there are lots of different ways you can figure it out, and it changes all the time, because there are always new tools and new features, and they move a button around and
I was going to say, and move something to a different tab. You're like, where's the subtotals gone?
Oh, it's the watermarks tab in Word for me. It just seems like the watermarks button seems to move every time they do an update, and I can't find it, and it drives me crazy. So
for the search bar.
Yeah, that's right. There are, I think it's meeting people where they are, but also letting them know that if you do this and then you need something else, there's always another option. Like, we can always look at something else, but you've got to start and make sure you've got those fundamentals right. You don't want to get too far ahead and jump in at the deep end, because then you don't stick to anything.
No. You mentioned there meeting people where they're at. We had one of our members in the inner circle recently who's just starting a business. She's a few months in, and most of the clients that she has worked with and her own kind of corporate upbringing has all been in Microsoft. And she had her first client inquiry from someone who was in Google, and she was like, do I turn that down? Do I not? And we sort of touched at this at the start of the conversation about, you know, as VAs and OBMs, it is great to be, you know, above average in both of them, so you can support clients. But if there's the flip side of that, where someone is more natively, they're more experienced in Google and they're transitioning to a client who is a Microsoft business, what are your recommendations on themselves getting up to speed? And obviously plug your own options away here as well, because it's very daunting, and I'd hate to see people go, well, I can't take any clients on in that space because of their own level of skill.
The reality is, and this is the thing that we don't say very often, is that sometimes we're learning just at a slightly faster pace than our clients.
Totally.
So if you've got a solid understanding of what they want to do, and you know that it's possible, it's about you working out how fast can you be. You only need to be one step ahead of your client.
Yeah.
Right? So Microsoft has an amazing array of support tutorials that have videos, and they have step-by-step instructions. They have a huge range. Sometimes they're just a bit tricky to find the one you want, because you will have to spend some time Googling and finding the right words that bring up the right things. There are some certifications you can do with Microsoft. They're not cheap to do. That's the reality. I think there are 2 or 3 places in Australia that do the training that is Microsoft. You can do Microsoft certified training and get a certificate, but they're not cheap. So if it goes through a third party, you're obviously then paying their margin on top. So through Microsoft, I think it costs you about $300 to sit an exam to then be certified as like a Microsoft Word associate or expert. And there are a few different levels, and they do that for every program. The reality is I don't have any of those. I keep saying to myself, I need to have them, because my brain says you need to be certified to do what you do. But I am 90.
Hasn't stopped you yet.
Well, no, here I still am. So I'm 95% self-taught. I've done some of the Microsoft training, and I think there are things that I would like to do purely for my own self-interest that probably don't reflect any of the work I do at the moment anyway. It's just I like to know how it all works. You can learn it and not ever be certified in it, but if you know how to do it and you can show a client that you can do it, then that puts you ahead of a lot of other people, and certainly ahead of your client, which makes them more likely to say, yes, you're the one, and I'll take you. I, of course, have lots of different ways. I have a YouTube channel with loads of free content to help people learn how to do different features and tools, because I'm not about holding on to the knowledge. I'd rather you had it and could take it and learn from it and help your own clients. So there's plenty of free resources. But I have the in-person workshops, I have templates and courses that will help you on a specific program or a specific feature. And then I have my membership, Thrive Academy, which is just gone into a flashy new portal.
Ooh.
And it's looking very schmick. So this is very good timing. It's so the membership's been around for about 18 months now, and it's a library, but it's the short tutorials where you can jump in, get a quick answer and jump out. And it's showing you exactly which button to press, what it does and why. And this is what you get at the end. So at the moment, the library has 180 short course videos in it. And there are 2 new classes added every month. And so we do a different theme each month. And then there's a group coaching call as well, where you can jump in and ask a question. You can be there live, or you can submit your question in advance, and it all gets recorded, and all of those sit in the portal as well.
What a great resource.
Yeah. And it's a community of people who are using Microsoft in there. So there's a Facebook group that goes with it, and there's a forum inside there. So you can ask a question and other people will kind of share how they've done it or what they think might work. So it's really nice to have a mix of people that are using it and figuring it out with you, instead of going to an IT expert, I say in inverted commas, who will just spout, these are the steps you do and away you go, and not really be interested in, show us what happened when you got there. Did you get stuck? How are you doing? Like, it's a really safe space to figure things out without feeling like you're coming up against a bunch of experts. So that's really nice. So the Academy is a one-time fee to join. So it's $14.97 to join, and that's a lifetime access then. So you can do that in a 12-month payment plan or upfront, and that gets you instant access to the Academy and all of the new content as it goes in. So that's,
wow.
yeah.
Sounds like an incredible resource.
A beautiful hub of And it's things that when I figure something out, I go, oh, that's really cool. I'll put a video in there.
The community will want to know that.
Yeah, that's a handy thing to know. I didn't know that button did that. So some of the videos are as short as sort of 2.5, 3 minutes. Some of them are up to 10, but I try to keep them all under 10 minutes because we're busy.
Yeah. And if we've got that thing, we're working in a spreadsheet, we know that it's possible, but we just don't know how we can jump in, watch the video, and we're back on track with our client work really quickly.
Super easy. Yeah.
Love that.
So, yeah.
Maz, thank you so much for coming and chatting with me today. If people want to learn more about those YouTube resources, the membership, your workshops, any of that, where is the best place for them to connect with you?
So I hang out on Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. On Facebook and Instagram, I'm on Thrive Admin Services, and on LinkedIn, you'll find me under Marianne Tansley. I hide there under my own name. I do have a company page, but I don't use it very often. Or you can head to thriveadmin.com, and that's where you'll find out all about me and what I can do to help, and you can get in touch there as well, and we can chat if there's something very specific that you need.
Amazing. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. We'll make sure we include all of those links in the show notes. Good luck with all of your workshops, and hopefully see you when you're in Newcastle.
Yes, definitely.
Thanks, Maz.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Seed to Success. Make sure you are subscribing so you never miss an episode. If you know a VA or OBM who might benefit from this conversation, be sure to share it with them. And a big thank you to our episode sponsor, Ready to Boss Legal. Check out the episode description for a special discount on all their legal templates. Let's chat again soon.